Good morning, HubSpot Nation. Welcome to Wake Up with Customer Platform, the unofficial HubSpot morning show, where we help you discover the platform value you already own. I'm Chris Carolan, and every weekday at 6 a.m. Central, we're here to make sure you're not sleeping on HubSpot's true capabilities. So let's wake up to what's happening in the HubSpot ecosystem. January 3rd, 2025. Happy Friday. Um, got a long list of updates that I noticed yesterday. So I'm going to take some time tomorrow on a Saturday to knock them all out in one go. Um, Probably hard to do in half an hour, but I really want to get caught up. So I'm going to move that to a weekend marathon session if needed. Maybe we talk a little bit about 2024 as a whole. Uh, all the updates happened. Not all 1,300 or whatever the number is, but definitely want to highlight um, before we start getting dropped on in 2025. Uh, so today, because I also want to find space to talk about stuff like objects, things that are really impactful that just can be very easy to lose track of or just miss. Like if you miss one day and there's no more product updates, then we don't talk about it. So trying to find space to highlight uh, impactful pieces, especially when I feel like most of the people I talk to don't know the thing exists, like this object library. Just helping to get the word out. Um, that said, I do want to just double check because I think the team, based on what I saw yesterday, uh, I'm going to check in this portal to see. If you notice, the product updates tab finally made it easier to get to instead of this drop down over here. It's in your settings area. So they did add a few yesterday. Everybody's excited about um, time since time until properties, today's date. Uh, So there's been lots of posts on LinkedIn about that. Um, and we'll get into it, this specific list tomorrow. Um, but yeah, back to this object library, which is what I'm going to focus on today. Uh, so important to get the data model right. And to get the data model right, it helps to know what data you can have in HubSpot. And a lot of people reduce HubSpot to the big four, we'll call them, and it's really the big three, and that's companies, contacts, and deals. When they think of HubSpot, they think of marketing and sales CRM only. Maybe they know about tickets, but they think they need Service Hub for that, which you don't, right? And now we've got these other four objects: appointments, courses, and listings, and services. Services is a big one. People were asking for it. Goes hand in hand with the customer success workspace, the original application for that, at least. Um, but these are four native objects. Uh, so come with HubSpot at every level. You just have to come in and check the box. And so review, enable, or disable these objects to best reflect your business across different HubSpot tools, including index tables, record pages, custom reports, workflows, and more. Let's look at the whole list. So if these objects are activated, you can use the Object API to create and manage CRM records that represent your business. You can import and export each object listed. The index page that displays all records for each object. Record customization, you can customize the configuration and data shown on records for each object to display the most useful information to your users. This one is one of the most powerful pieces of HubSpot when we talk about unified views for multiple teams, you can really go to work on using the same set of data and the same record, single record, to show vastly different views to the people using them. Property settings create and edit fields that are used to collect and store information about your specific object. Capture the relationships of activated objects. An activated object will show in the association cards of other associated activated objects. All pages and settings that are used to configure this object. Pipelines and lifecycle stages. So pipelines, a big one here. Usually people have been doing stuff in deals and tickets that they might not want to be doing in deals and tickets, because those are the only place they could access pipelines, especially if they didn't have enterprise. Uh, but even with enterprise, I noticed custom objects, people don't really know about pipelines. They don't really use them effectively. Uh, Appointments, courses, listings, and services all have pipelines. Companies and contacts, lifecycle stages, which are starting to be set up similarly to pipelines. So there's hope there that all of these will start to behave in the same way. Custom report builder objects can be used to build custom reports to help you meet your business goals. Single object reporting. You can analyze an object such as contacts in relationship to its object properties, workflows. Objects can be used to automate processes and lists. You can create lists of records based on property values and other characteristics for each object. A lot of the focus on Object Library was about this data templates, which they're continuing to work on, but that's definitely not the magic for me. You only get this at Pro, and it tends to, we're just not there yet as far as like until the rest of the data model is in. Like you can give me some properties and associations, but I need to include the whole data model, which we're going to talk about more. But I just wanted to highlight this because it's very easy to see new words like appointments, courses, listing, services, and HubSpot has had a habit of introducing new terms in object-like fashion, and then you only get a sidebar, or you can't create the record, or there's some limitation, right? So I wanted to highlight these objects, and the reason we don't see all of the quote-unquote objects we're used to seeing is because I believe these are the 8 that for sure all of these tools, all of the tools we want, are like 100% activated for. Now, what's not activated and why one of the reasons people still don't know probably is it's not these ones, these objects will not show up, do not show up in any of the navigation here, right? So hopefully that gets solved soon in 2025. But let's look at uh, the rest of the list here of objects. And just to confirm kind of what happens when you activate and contacts, we have these contacts has been a special case. Won't spend time on that. Companies, we've got leads, right? Need Pro for that. Deals, tickets, products. Product library is moving out of settings on January 10th, 2025. Your product library is being replaced and moving out of settings. You can find your new product library in the Commerce Navigation tab, all right, which is here, right? So this is where we find a few other objects, right? Products being one of them. Payment links, quotes, subscriptions, services. I'll click on services real quick. So see, native object at every level of HubSpot. We have setup, associations, pipelines, record customization, preview customization, index customization. And then we can even view services in our data model, right? So all these things are real objects um, in terms of where you expect to see them. It's courses, listing, services, and appointments, right? Now, the challenge right now is that while we can see our custom objects here, we still don't see the commerce objects in association with with the rest of the data model, which I've been working on since last year and making some progress. It's just hard to make it visual inside of HubSpot right now. But we can see I've already talked about products, payment links, quotes, subscriptions. We've got invoices. Uh, and then we start to enter into the world of everything is an object, right? We've got activities. All of this stuff just over the last year has increased dramatically in terms of the settings management. Activities and lists, activities, lists, uh, workflows. You can manage properties from, uh, and pro tip, like if you want to understand if anything's new, um, like I first started realizing when I was coming and selecting an object here, new stuff was showing up. And then when you export all properties, it shows you, sometimes gives you into a window into things you haven't seen yet because it shows properties, for example, related to workflows that you can start managing and understanding. We have marketing events that has made a lot of progress recently as far as manageability related to the customer data model, and all of this is in an effort to create a unified customer data model that walks, talks, and behaves the way that we'd like it to, as far as taking advantage of the rest of the HubSpot portal. And then, uh, of course, orders, which is almost there. So the one thing we don't have yet is associations, right? That we can't manage like the rest. But we've got pipelines, record customization, preview, index. So pretty close to all the way there with orders, and carts is uh, almost there as well, except we don't see pipelines. And then we have our custom objects. So if you use the custom objects, these latest four of services, courses, listings, and appointments are very much like custom objects at non-enterprise levels. And if you can't afford enterprise, or that was the only reason that you're thinking about upgrading to enterprise, you might be able to save some money if you think about using services um, or listings and starting with a base model, and then using pipelines as sub objects, basically. So for me, most of of course, I hang out in post sales land as much as I can to help that user group uh, become first class citizens in the HubSpot portal. Um, and a lot of that is related to stage and gate, kind of project management, status updates, and how it relates to all the other objects. So the power of being able to create pipelines for non-deal, non-ticket uh, objects, it just activates your team. It activates a lot of HubSpot's capabilities because pipelines really, like once you get that down, activates a lot of the rest of the tool set. Um, as far as being able to notify, like just a lot of the automation can be driven by the stage and gate process. Can see really easy to see, uh, API information, um, and start to customize this out. Right, very easy to add a stage. So I'm going to hit on that until I meet people who, until I go 1 week without finding somebody that is aware of um, all the objects available. This has been the biggest challenge of, people just don't recognize or they're not familiar with the post sales capabilities of HubSpot. Once you connect those dots, a lot of things become possible, right? So just um, real quick, but just exploring ways to start sharing this information, start educating. And I'm definitely open to feedback and love to work with anybody um, that wants to step up and start, educating on the obviously the importance of data models. A lot of people talk about, but in relationship to HubSpot, and of course in relationship of the customer, right? Because it is all about kind of this flow, like managing this flow for each business um, supports a customer experience that most say they want, right? So you got contact object and the company object as core objects. Commercial objects all understood the deal object, quote object. Expect to get revamped significantly with the acquisition of cash flow. Uh, and that's going to include order object, right? The professional record keeper of your customer transaction tracks what was purchased, what was paid, and how it should be delivered. Won't dig into detail, but I'm going to do special profiles or specific profiles on each object. That's the kind of thing I'm trying to make space for on a daily basis because there's 18 of them right now. Uh, but there's a reason that orders are important and will replace deals as the primary revenue management tool. Because I take it's not extreme, it's just a hard stance. If there's no sale to be managed, don't use deals, right? What I expect to see with the implementation of the cash flow infrastructure and to be able to manage things like uh, the whole quote to cash process optimization. If there's no sale to be managed, do not use a deal. So that means repeat orders, right? E-commerce orders, that's where we've started to see it. Orders that are coming in from other systems. Uh, we're only making deals because that's how we report on revenue in HubSpot. And whenever you got to make a deal and it goes right to closed won, assuming we have good adoption of the system, that means there was no sale to manage. Just went right to closed won, right? The infrastructure isn't set up to report on revenue the way that financial teams need it, as far as like backlog and shipped versus not shipped in process. That's why forecasting revenue is so challenging in HubSpot. It's built for marketing and sales only, which is pipeline forecasting, which is much different than revenue realized, which for lots of businesses, um, that have milestone billing and all these other things, uh, you know, blanket purchase orders was another thing that was challenging, still challenging until we reach this future where this revenue infrastructure changes, this revenue experience. So, going to be super important. An object I expect to be the center of attention in 2025. Um, and then of course, we have payment object, invoice object, cart objects, product and service objects, right? In order to support CPQ, right? This infrastructure is going to be updated in some way. A lot of people have been wishing for line items to be something that they're not, uh, in terms of being able to take the burden of managing, you know, um, products and services sold after the sale. I don't see it that way. I think service object is a good starter example. Of course, I've been a proponent of the deliverable object, not native, but should be. Um, Tracking what was promised, what's being delivered, and how it's progressing. Every customer wants those answers, how it's progressing. Right? Whether I just bought it, whether I bought it 3 years ago and want to understand warranty information, usage information. So customer success workspace starts to allow for that. Um, uh, but you got to make a space for this data, and the line item is not that space. Right. So the way I like to think about it, product object is defining what can be sold, how it could be configured, and helps the team understand what's generally required. Right. You have inventory information there too. Line item objects, the professional deal configurator, translating strategic product definitions into exactly what this customer needs to buy at the moment they need to buy it. So it creates this ultimate flexibility where we can even make custom line items that don't exist in the product library out of nowhere. Uh, we can do a cost at one, a quantity of 1, 10, 100, right? And then whichever one they pick. So after that, after closed one, it has to go from the most flexible thing to the least flexible thing. We don't want anybody touching it because that's what we committed. That's what the dotted line was signed for, right? What was promised, what needs to be delivered. So we transfer that information to a deliverable object of some sort. This is where the management of pipelines becomes insanely valuable because anything after that really could be a deliverable, right? Whether it's warranty paperwork, qualification, um, implementation projects. This goes across. I haven't found yet a business that says, "Oh, the thing that we do after the sale wouldn't make sense to call it a deliverable," right? So we bring that information from the line item object at the time of closed one, and it allows for proper management during post sale activity. Some people think that the order can serve this purpose only really if it's a one-to-one relationship all the time with the deal, right? And even then, it's like we sell one line item, like a piece of equipment, uh, but then we have to do a bunch of other stuff like activate warranties and service contracts and things like that. So I haven't found a ton of like one-to-one relationships where it's deal closes and then order only has to represent one thing that the customer will need to know the status of, right? So the orders are where you like understand status of uh, the whole engagement that was purchased, right? and its payment status generally. Um, so an accounting summary, a project summary, if you will. And inside of that, people care about all the things related to it. So we have a deliverable object. Most systems did not design the line item to support the kind of Amazon-like clarity that you have when you log into your Amazon account and you can see the status of every single thing in the order, not the whole order, right? If stuff is arriving on different days, we need to see different lines for that stuff. If you don't have custom objects right now, you can use this service object in exactly that capacity. Uh, Support and success objects, specifically ticket objects. I'm differentiating between ticket object because it's built for things like help desk. It's a very reactive. It's meant to handle reactive support, right? Like help desk. All the other things we're talking about is proactive success, like managing activity proactively, not waiting for and needing to triage, right? So all the SLA management and the routing and resolution um, is important to have in the ticket object. That's also why it's not necessarily set up well for success. Uh, and we have marketing event object, course object, appointment object, organizational objects, and we'll work on this terminology together, I hope. The key is that, like, right now, this terminology of CRM objects, sales objects, like, there's a lot more, you know, needed for sales, or it's like, it just this contributes to the misunderstanding that people have when we start like labeling these things in this way. So we'll figure this out. But leads, I think, in terms of signals, uh, not a huge fan of the word leads, and I talked about that in my 5 revelations conversation. We'll continue talking about that lead trap, the lead addiction that we have. So I see this as more of a signal object. Think in terms of signal-based selling and kind of uh, understanding what triggers activity from your team, right, is important to track. But when we include like, oh, new piece of data came in from Zoom Info, like, no, that's not a lead. Don't act on that. Like, please. Yeah, I know. I'm in the minority there, but and then the listing object. This is really like anything that could be indexed. And you want to see an index page for, you want to present an index page for. So maybe it's professional profiles, maybe it's team profiles, maybe it's products for a catalog. You know, when listing was introduced, it was introduced from the perspective of, you know, real estate application. That's where, yes, it could list some houses, some properties, like home properties, not CRM properties. But it can, like anything a business wants to list or could be seen in a list, you know, you can set that up because we have access to these different pipelines. So, right, all these objects have these core properties, which just if you start to implement this for these different object groups, for these different objects, it helps your teams that need to own that activity. Now they have a place to work in HubSpot. Um, so yeah, we'll keep working on this education. The first step is understanding that this stuff exists in HubSpot. HubSpot is capable of handling post-sales data, which of course, We say that we have a unified view of the customer. Let's create a unified view that includes everything that happens after the sale. That includes the revenue and the money that's changed hands, contracts, all the things we are capable of, at least a place for the data in HubSpot right now. And if we can make a place for the data in HubSpot, then we can communicate it from HubSpot internally, externally, and we know there's no better system for communication with customers on the market. And that's our show for today. You probably already own the solution you're looking for in HubSpot, especially this post-sales data. You just need to wake up to it. Join us on Monday morning at 6 a.m. Central. Not sure what time I'll go tomorrow on Saturday, but we will go in the morning probably as we continue exploring platform value hiding in plain sight. If this was helpful, share it with another HubSpot user who needs this wake-up call. Drop your biggest takeaway in the comments and let me know what platform capabilities you want to wake up to next. I'm Chris Carolan, and this has been Wake Up with Customer Platform. Now go build something amazing. Have a great weekend, everybody.